Well, I have to be honest, that last kick really did change the vibe of this review, of how this review was going to go. Never did a win feel so much like a loss, to be honest. Credit to the character of the boys, and that maul at the end was pretty excellent. And Jared Evans, ice in his veins, to be fair, not the most prolific goal kicker when they went for posts. I have to admit, I was pretty nervous, but nailed it pretty much down the middle. And fair play to him, come on and actually made a big impact. Curious as maybe it was why he took so long to put him on, but this was I don't want to be overly negative because Wales have won their first home game since 2023. It's a crucial one, of course. This was the must-win given the World Cup and all that. We don't need to go in now, we know the situation, but it was really terrible. It was really terrible. We started really well with Dan Edwards' try. The play kind of broke down, but just a bit of individual brilliance with his footwork and slipperiness, score a try, and then from that point in, it was pretty poor. Interestingly, off that, we committed a penalty off the kickoff for blocking, which you can't do. Twice we did that, cost us points. Luckily, the first time it didn't. It should be fair to say as well, Japan missed 6 points off the tee, which obviously would have been the difference. And there was two teams out there today, but only one played rugby. I felt there was not much quality coming out of the Wales team, and Japan really, with that speed of ball, they put us under constant pressure, and the boys were struggling after 20 minutes, absolutely off their feet, blowing. A lot of people kneeling over. And it was credit to the Japanese team who came and really played rugby. It was just so poor, the standards, the handling errors again, line out didn't function again, kick receipts, all of the back three pretty much, and basically everyone in the whole team. The kick chase, the chase was getting there. Sometimes the kicks were pretty good from the halfbacks, but just no attempt to go with two hands. I understand that going up as high as you can with the one hand is like the tactic now, but it got to the point where that was constantly working against us like it did in the Pumas game, and we kept going to it. The only one who did kind of go with it with two hands in the end was Adams, but Rhys-Emmett constantly just going with one hand, and Blair Murray again. I mean, there has to kind of be a change now at fullback, because that was proven. He got a second chance given what happened in the Argentina game against a team that wasn't as effective in that aerial battle, and he was thoroughly outdone again. So they're going to have to look at that spot. The Adams red card, it comes from frustration, understandably, but we've seen this type of thing from Adams before, where he can let frustration take him over him, and he let it happen in this. He wasn't playing well, and I think he was just, as you do, maybe trying to get yourself into the game and trying to affect the game when you're not really having a good effect on the game, and it was just reckless, not dirty. To be honest, if that's a red card, then I think rugby's just rugby's in the cleaners, because yes, he makes contact with the head, but it was very minor, and for that to be a red card, and then some of the Japanese tackles to not be, strange, but that's the rules, and it's the interpretation of the referee. Outside of that, it's hard to take too many positives out of it. I thought Dan Edwards was one of the positives, did his best to control things. I thought again the centres didn't offer anything. Max Llewellyn doesn't carry the ball. I'm sorry, he's pretty good defensively, but he doesn't offer anything going forward, which is weird because for Gloucester he does, and he's a big boy, but they don't ever use him as a carrier, and when he gets his hands on the ball he seems to look to pass. Don't know whether that's confidence or what. Maybe he's not confident in the 13 channel, but that wasn't good enough. I thought when Tompkins actually came on and Llewellyn went to the wing, it looked a lot better. And Tompkins actually made a bit of an impact coming on, to be fair to him. I thought the bench generally did make an impact coming on. Curious as to why it took them so long to put for Belcher and particularly Freddie Thomas on, because the 2 second rows were literally blowing out of their asses by the end, and they played 8 minutes in the last game, and he waited until like the 75th minute. So that's something they're gonna have to look at. And Jared coming on late when he definitely impacted the game, that's something they need to look at. And this was a characteristic of Matt Sherratt as a head coach as well. So I wonder if he's having a lot of influence. It certainly looks that way with the team selection. So that's something they're really going to have to work out, because the changes did actually give Wales a little bit of something, and something they were lacking, a bit more energy. But, Japan played them off the park, and the fitness has to be called into question. The basic handling skills need to be called into question. I thought the tackling was a little bit better this week, but Japan found ways to break us down through good play, and they basically just showed us how to play rugby. And it was just, to be fair, I credit to the Wales boys, it was just grit and determination that got them over the line in the end and got the win. So yeah, it's a really strange feeling I have at the moment, because I have to admit that I was literally watching that game seething. I actually wrote, it got to about the 74th minute, and I wrote on my notes, I don't know if I can do this anymore, because my wife asked me, am I going to do a video? I said, yeah, I'm going to do one straight away. And then I just sat there and thought, I just don't know if I want. I don't know if I want to. But it was bad. And the thought of, two of the best teams in the world coming next week and the week after is terrifying. Because if that's the best we can put out, then we're going to get absolutely 60, 70, 80 points put on us. So I really don't know what the coaching staff can go in and say to the players now of how they can get out of this sort of mentality, of this funk of just completely going into their shells. Yes, they got a win. I guess you can compliment them and build them up on their character and the fact that they stuck in the game for so long. But they were basically hanging on in the game. And every time they took the lead, they gave stupid territory, or discipline was poor, or just stupid things. Like, experienced players like Dav Jenkins is maybe still young in his age, but he's a very experienced player, especially within that team. And he blocked the kickoff. And Josh Adams, obviously one of the most experienced players in that team, and he was the one who committed that stupid red card and put us under so much pressure. And to be fair, we actually dealt with that period pretty well, but it's not the point. It's really hard. I feel really strange about this game, and I'm really interested to see what you guys think of this one. I think this is going to be a lot of negativity. I think some people might watch this video and say, you're being too negative. I mean, we didn't deserve to win that. But what is a sign of a good team? Losing when they play bad, so who knows? I'll go through the position groups like I like to do. The front row I thought was pretty good, scrummaging-wise. To my mind, there wasn't any scrum penalties. Nicky Smith offered a lot around the park. Overall, it was okay. Dewi Lake threw himself around into everything like he always does. Not as effective as he usually has been in the past, I think, in this one. But the heart was always there and the effort, and he never stopped flying into everything. The 2 second rows, as I mentioned, a little bit disappointing for me this week. Last week I give them praise for the workload they got through. They got through a lot of work in this game, but there's a couple of mistakes, as I mentioned, both of them giving away those penalties off the kickoff, and both of those are, like I said, the more experienced players, so a little bit disappointed. And to be fair, they put in a shift and they looked out on their feet by the end, so maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh. But Dav Jenkins did actually make a few good carries, but Beard again offers nothing other than line out and the odd couple of tackles. The back row was a worry for me going into this one, particularly Wainwright at 6, and I think, in my opinion, I think that was quite justified that I was worried about that. I thought Cracknell did well carrying, missed a few tackles. Discipline was okay, but generally he was pretty good. He did get us going forward a couple of times. I thought Man was excellent. Everyone says I overpraise Man. I've got a Man crush on him, I'll admit it. But I thought he was superb playing out of position. He had a couple of important steals and a couple of big tackles, again, punching above his weight. And he gets off the line fast and gets in people's faces. And how he got up, he got blasted twice for those both yellow cards. And how he got up off the second one, where he's going down and the sweat and that just flew off him. Yeah, fair play to him. He's a beast. Thomas Williams played well. I think he did his best to get things going, but there's only so much you can do. When we actually started going through phases, the handling was bad. A couple of times Japan were coming out of the line quickly and it was spooking us. Yeah, Thomas Williams had a good game, I think, but he can only have as much influence, a certain amount of influence. Dan Edwards, I thought, was good in this one. I feel like he was one of the few players, ironically, to show maturity given his age and his lack of caps. A couple of good kicks. Obviously, he had the try. There was a good tackle he made on when Japan broke us down. So I think he can be happy with his afternoon. And it's good to see him building on the performance of last week. And again, I think he took a step up this week. So he'll be happy and he had a good game. The centres, again, didn't work. I don't really remember seeing Ben Thomas have more than one carry. He probably did, but to my mind, he had maybe one carry. Yes, he was distributing behind. So, he had a good game in that aspect. The defence in the centre field was pretty good, so I can't really criticise that. But again, touching on Max Llewellyn, just offers nothing in attack. And I think there needs to be a change in that centre because they really didn't put themselves in the best light last week and they didn't really do anything to say, right, we've adjusted that. They've had plenty of game time together now. They're probably one of the more settled combinations of that team, which makes it difficult to make a change in there. But I think Tandy's got to be brave, excuse me, and realise that it's not working. And just because they've got understanding, I think maybe a change needs to be there. Worrying who's going to play outside centre, though, particularly in that last game. A few people mentioned in the comments recently who's going to play 13 in the South Africa game. I don't know. So they're either going to have to call Joe Robertson or force someone into that position. So again, another worry. Back three, high ball was shocking again. Josh Adams, of course, had his red, so we won't talk about him. Blair Murray had probably his worst game for Wales, I think. Didn't offer what he usually does in attack. Quite a few mistakes, and the high ball. And Rees-Zammit was probably one of the only sparks. It was good to see him get his hands on the ball and actually carrying, coming looking for work into midfield and making some carries there because he's put on all this size. At least he got on the score sheet. The crowd actually was, considering what they had to sit through, was actually really good. And they got, whenever Wales give them something to cheer about, they really did cheer about it, which was great to see. And I think that's because there was a lot of young people, lots of kids in the crowd. And, you want to bring kids into the game, and then that's kind of what you subject them to. But nonetheless, I think the crowd really did do their part in getting the team going, especially in the last 5 minutes when they needed a bit of extra energy. Then the bench, as I mentioned, made a big impact. The two props coming on attacked their scrum, which was good to see. Granted, they give away that free kick, but I think that was more trying to force something, so I won't criticise them for that. But they did go after him and actually won a couple of penalties, got us going forward, and that gave us a foothold back in the game in the last 10 minutes. So it was good to see Carey come on and make that kind of impact. And Azarati was pretty tidy. Freddie Thomas didn't have any time to really make an impact. Plumtree came on quite early for Wainwright. I don't think the Wainwright at 6 worked. I did mention I think he's worked so much on being an 8 that he's not a 6 anymore, and I do think that kind of showed. Plumtree was okay. He's always busy. Nothing to really write home about, but he was in amongst stuff, which is what you need off the bench. Then Jared obviously nailed that kick. He did make things happen when he came on, so a bit of positive there. And Nick Tompkins did, help the team when he came on. I thought he definitely added a little bit of extra in that backline, actually offered something, got on the score sheet, so that was positive. But, walking away from this game, as I mentioned, is a really strange one because I feel so negative about that, but it is ultimately a win, which we haven't had for so long in the Millennium Stadium, and a much needed win for Steve Tandy. At least he's got a win on the board now. If we'd have lost this game and then got stuffed in the next two, it's kind of difficult to imagine where the win's going to come from, because I think the Six Nations, on the evidence of what we've seen in the last 2 weeks, is going to be difficult. So, sorry to depress everyone, but I'm depressed. So, the most weird win I've ever watched for Wales. But I'll leave it with you, and I'll catch you on the next one.